Over the course of its history, the German language has gone through around 8 stages, depending on how it's counted. Not all of these existed definitely as distinct languages, but they may be important in classifying the language today. In this video, I will go through the whole way from Proto-Indo-European to the modern German language, with a select list of words, and try to show all the sound changes along the way. It's worth mentioning at the start that the order of the changes might not be 100% accurate, especially when it reaches the Old High German to Middle High German stage. Old High German wasn't a single language as such, and was more akin to a dialect continuum, as in the modern Romance languages. Different dialects may have undergone different changes, or the same changes in different orders, and since there is no single dialect which gave rise to the modern German language, differences may arise. So here's the initial list of words in Proto-Indo-European. As a note on the orthography, an acute over a vowel shows accent, and over velar stops marks the so-called palatal velars. An H with a subscript number indicates a laryngeal consonant, and a capital without a number indicates a laryngeal of unknown value. A ring below a sonorant shows not voicelessness as in the International Phonetic Alphabet, but syllabicity. For the purposes of this video, I will pronounce the palatal velars as palatalized consonants, and labio and plain velars as plain. The first laryngeal will be a glottal stop, the second a pharyngeal fricative, and the third a labialized pharyngeal fricative. Parterre, Thraeus, Tour, Royaume, Reichs, Oinos, Eitsom, Penque, Kjarnom, Eich, Etti, Esti, Ur-indo-germanisch, Goltos, petwóres, Merter, Nocts, Snoigos, Sequeti, Stoinos, Polter, Voide. As Proto-Indo-European began to split up into dialects, certain changes occurred. The dialects may still have been mutually intelligible at this point, but they had begun to diverge. Pre-Proto-Germanic was the form of Indo-European which eventually developed into Proto-Germanic. It had undergone a few changes, some of which were unique and some of which were shared with other Indo-European branches. The most notable were Kentmization, which is the merging of palato and plain velars, a penthesis of a vowel before syllabic sonorants, and the loss of the laryngeal consonants. At this point, however, the characteristic sound changes, such as Grimm's and Werner's laws, had not taken place. A few words also changed by analogy. The labialized consonants in petwóres and penque, which translate to 4 and 5 respectively, assimilated to the initial P in penque. Parterre, meaning bed, also changed its gender from feminine to masculine, and its nominal ending changed accordingly. Partos, Thraeus, Tu, Ovium, Eichs, Oinos, Eosom, Penpe, Kjarnom, Eich, Etsti, Esti, Junkos, Goltos, petwóres, Mater, Nocts, Snoigos, Sequeti, Stoianos, Peter, Voide. I've split the next stage of changes into 2 sets. These show the transition from pre-Proto-Germanic to Proto-Germanic proper. They include Grimm's law, the chain shift of voiced, unvoiced and voiced aspirated stops, Werner's law, the voicing of fricatives, and the stress shift onto the first syllable. The O and A sounds also merged into a single back vowel, which in the word lists I have represented simply with an A. Later changes include the creation of nasal vowels, loss of the schwa, and an initial umlaut process. This gives us a new word list something like the following: Bardos, Threes, Thu, Ayan, Eichs, Einos, Isa, Fimf, Hurna, Eich, Itidi, Isti, Jungos, Kolvos, Fedwór, Móðir, Nachts, Snævos, Sechwidi, Steinos, Faðir, White. West Germanic is the stage of the language which eventually became English, German, Dutch, Yiddish, Frisian, and several others. It isn't certain if there was a Proto-West Germanic language, or whether it was simply a group of similar dialects of Proto-Germanic. If there were a single language, it would have looked something like this. The key changes of this era were the reduction of long vowels and diphthongs, shift from eth to d, loss of some nominative noun endings, and rhoticization of z. Bart, Thrir, Thu, I, Eich, Ein, Is, Fimf, Horn, Eich, Itidi, Isti, Jung, Cold, Fewar, Móðir, Nacht, Snæv, Sichwidi, Stein, Fader, White. Since this is the last common ancestor between English and German, all of these words, except white, are the direct ancestors of the words in the brackets. White has no common descendants in modern English, but is the wit in unwitting and witness. Old High German was the group of dialects spoken around the area of modern Germany between the 8th and 11th centuries. The most important sound change was the High German consonant shift, where voiceless stops turned into fricatives or affricates depending on the environment they were in. There were also several vowel changes to and from diphthongs, and some dialectal changes. As German came together from several regional dialects, these changes will have affected different modern words to different degrees, depending on which dialects influenced them the most. Bart, Dri, Du, Ei, Eich, Ein, Is, Fimf, Horn, Ich, Issit, Ist, Jung, Kalt, Fjord, Måter, Nacht, Snö, Sichit, Stein, Vater, Weis. Middle High German was spoken until the 14th century and was defined by three main sound changes. These were another stage of umlaut, which created the front round vowels, reduction of unstressed vowels to schwa, and final devoicing, all of which are still important processes in the German of today. Bart, Dri, Du, Ei, Eich, Ein, Is, Fünf, Horn, Ich, Isset, Ist, Jung, Kalt, Vier, Måter, Nacht, Snö, Sichert, Stein, Vater, Weis. The final set of changes leads into modern German. They include various palatalizations and fortitions, the shift of W into V, and changes affecting the long vowels and diphthongs of the older language. In addition to the changes listed here, many dialects also underwent changes like the uvularization of the R sound and the derhoticization in a syllable's coda, similar to the change in British English. Bart, Drei, Du, Ei, Eich, Ein, Eis, 5 Horn. Ich, ist, jung, kalt. 4 Mutter, Nacht, Schnee, sieht, Stein, Vater, weiß.